What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna get into some e-bike Bafang news. Doo 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 doo. Alright, so we're gonna do some e-bike news, but first we've got to shout out some coffee supporters. So I've got to buy me a coffee. If you like to support my endeavors, my e-bike adventure endeavors, and experimentation in e-bikes, feel free to head on over to buymeacoffee.com/ebikebuilder. So we're just going to shout out some of the recent supporters. We've got Whiskey 9 Ice, big supporter. Thank you very much, sir and madam, or whatever pronouns you may prefer. Thank you very much. 2 days ago, big supporter, big supporter. Right. Thanks, Whiskey 9 Ice. He's also in the Discord. That's another little piece of news that we've got here. So I've made a Discord where we can all talk about e-bikes. Right? So people are in there, they're showing off their custom builds and stuff. Look at this. This is pretty sweet. So that's in the Discord. Made the frame from scrap metal. That's my kind of bike right here. So very cool. So we've got some people going into the Discord and we're all talking about e-bikes and stuff. So if that is something that interests you, make sure you check that out. But back to the coffee supporters. So we've got no info found. Big supporter. Big supporter. Always comes through with the coffee support. No info found. Thank you very much. So supported a week ago and then a little bit a week ago. So we've got a number of coffee support donations for no info found. Thank you very much, my friend. He's also a big super thanks kind of guy. He's supported me through YouTube super thanks. It seems like people like buy me a coffee a little bit more. Maybe it's a little more tangible. It is going towards coffee, guys, for sure. Like we've got one right here. All right, but let's keep going with this. We're drinking some Colombian today. Some Colombian, got some cocoa powder in there, some coconut oil, and some pea protein. Some salt, and some stevia. Liquid stevia. That's what I put in my coffee. Kind of a bulletproof type of thing. Bulletproof coffee. Alright, let's keep going. So, old man with e-bike. Big supporter as well. Big supporter. 3 weeks ago there's one. A month ago there's one. Thank you very much, old man with the e-bike. And then, so 3 months ago we've got one. So not a whole lot of people support me with the coffees, but the ones that do, I'm very thankful for. Very generous. Thank you very much. Whiskey 9 Ice, no info found, old man with e-bike. And then there's George. And 3 months ago, George donated a coffee. Thank you very much, my friend. He also told me to buy a proper derailleur. I'm working towards that. We're saving up my pennies in the penny jar. We're going to get one of those at some point. Alright, so thanks to all my supporters. I appreciate that. It's starting to pick up a little bit. Right? Both the supporters here and then on YouTube as well. You can always support me on YouTube, just liking and subscribing, leaving comments, and all that stuff. But let's get back to this news. So, the other day, let's get, oh, I'm going back to the darkness. Right here, alright. So the other day, Johnny Nerdout, he did a video that caught my attention. So Johnny Nerdout, he does Bafang. He's got a DIY e-bike. He does the Bafang mid-drives. He's kind of like a big mid-drive guy. Right? So he does all these Bafang mid-drive builds. So he had this video here a day ago. November 2024 news. Big news for the BBSO2 and BBSHD. UL listed batteries and more. So let's take a look at this news from Johnny Nerdo. So he's kind of a Bafang type dealer, I think. You know, he orders a lot of these motors. So he's probably getting this news a little bit earlier than everybody else. Let's go click in here and watch some of this.
Bike or just a bike, whatever.
Let's go back to the beginning here. We'll watch some of this. Let's go here. Johnny Nerdo telling us all about it. Theater mode. here we go.
Hey guys, Johnny Nerd out here. I got some big news I want to talk about. A lot of things that are happening in the e-bike world. So really quick, we got some big news from Bafang, big battery news, and we also got some news from 27 that I want to talk about that I think
Hopefully you guys can hear this. Let's see. Speakers. All right.
is going to affect you guys going forward. Okay, so first and foremost, we got big news from Bafang, and I'm not trying to be, this isn't hyperbole, but this might be probably the biggest news from Bafang since since they introduced their first BBS01 motor. They recently revealed that they are going to be discontinuing the UART version of the BBS02 and BBSHD.
Okay, so Johnny, he's telling us that Bafang is allegedly discontinuing the UART version of the BBS02 and the BBSHD. So what this means, this is basically, it's the connector that runs between the controller and then the display. You know, it's kind of like how the display, when you're pushing pedal assist up and pedal assist down and you're turning it on and off, like your display kind of communicates to the controller, which is inside of these motors. And that's how it works, right? And it uses UART communication. Okay, so let's go do a little bit of backstory here so we're all on the same page. So let's go right here. Let's zoom in here. Zoom in so you can see it. Alright, so how is CANbus different than UART for Bafang e-bike motor systems? This is me asking Google AI. So it says CANbus and UART are two different communication protocols used in Bafang e-bike motor systems. Here's a breakdown of their key differences. Okay, so for CANbus, this is kind of the new, more complicated, this is the direction that Bafang is heading in, as CAN-based communications, or CANbus. So it says it's a standardized protocol. CANbus is a standardized protocol for communication between electronic devices. So standardized protocols are nice because then all of your displays and all of your controllers and everything, there's kind of like a one standardized way that everything can communicate with each other. And so when you establish those standards, you can kind of, you know, have all of your hardware adhere to those standards and work within those specifications so it all works together nicely, right? So there's higher data rates. So CANbus supports higher data rates than UART, so you can do faster communication between the motor controller and other components, right? So in the past, when things are pretty simple and it's just like pedal assist up, pedal assist up, pedal assist down, turn the bike on, turn the bike off, those kind of things are simple. It's not really like real-time communication. Maybe the motor sends a signal, or maybe the controller sends a signal up to the display that tells the display how fast the bike is going or something like that. But in the past, e-bikes have been fairly simple, and there's not a lot of like real-time communication. It's not super sophisticated. But moving forward, CANbus, that's kind of like a more complex protocol. So it requires more sophisticated hardware and software. And then so it says better suited for larger networks. So it says CANbus is better suited for larger networks of devices, as it can handle multiple devices communicating simultaneously. Alright, so where they're kind of heading with this, I think, is when you're thinking of like a network of devices, you might be thinking of like, you know, like multiple e-bikes or something, but in this context, like a network of there could be a network of devices all just on one e-bike, right? So with CANbus, your e-bike might have like its own CANbus network, right? And then so the controller might be one thing that is part of that CANbus network, and then your display is probably another part of that CANbus network, right? And then the battery these batteries, when you're working with CANbus systems, usually the battery has some kind of smart, BMS or something in there where it can also communicate over CANbus the state of the battery and the state of the cells and all that kind of stuff. So the CANbus stuff, it also factors into like batteries and BMSs and stuff like that. So as batteries continue to get more complicated and sophisticated, they're gonna, there's gonna be more and more of this type of stuff. CANbus for communication, right? So in the past, it's always used UART, right? So in the past, Bafang, their motors have always used UART, which is a simpler protocol. It requires less complex hardware and software. So UART, there's lower data rates, right? So we talked about that a little bit. CANbus is faster. UART is kind of slower. So it says UART is better suited for smaller networks of devices. It can only handle one device communicating at a time. So as you can imagine, it can kind of work when your devices are very simple and the communication between devices isn't too sophisticated. But as soon as you want to start having your battery communicating with the controller and your display and all of that, and everything's kind of communicating, and it's like a whole network of devices on your e-bike, that is where UART can kind of become a limitation, right? So then also the thing about UART is just since it's simpler and less sophisticated, it's also less expensive. So this is one of the reasons that UART has been so popular in the past, is it's less expensive than a more sophisticated CANbus one, right? So in the past, like the UART display for Bafang, UART Bafang. So here we go. So if you've got a Bafang motor and it's got one of these green, like a circular green kind of thing like this, let's see here. It's not a very good example. Let's see. Here's a comparison of the UART display connector versus a CAN display connector. So the UART one, it's that green circular one that's got 5 pins in it, and then the CANbus one, it's kind of like a weird, it's almost like a triangle or something. It's kind of a weird polygonal shape. It's kind of like a rounded rectangle, but then one side of it is like a kind of like a diamond. I don't even know what that shape is. But so that's kind of the main difference, is that the UART version of the motor, it's got that one connector on it, the circular one, whereas the CANbus version, it's got that other connector. So within the context of Bafang motor systems, like if you have a UART motor, then you're going to need a UART display to be able to connect those things together and make everything work, right? And then so if you have a CANbus version of the motor, right, it's going to have that CAN connector, and then your display is going to need a CAN connector. Okay, so it's kind of like two different communication protocols, and in the past it was UART, and in the future it seems like everything's moving towards CANbus. So let's continue listening to Johnny Nerd Out about these changes that Bafang seems to be moving towards.
Which is huge. That's huge news. They are going to be continuing with those motors, but they are going to be using the CAN bus interface. So it's going to have different displays, different controller.
So that is one thing about Bafang moving to this new CANbus thing, is now all of a sudden all of the displays have to be CANbus as well, right? So and there's like there's gonna be like a whole surplus of all of these UART displays. Like So I've never even tried to go and buy a CANbus display, but so what this might mean is it might be more difficult to find a display that you like, because like the traditional popular ones that we like using with the BBSHD might not be available. So let's try something here. Let's go searching for a CANbus. Let's go searching for displays. It seems like if you want these CANbus ones, the options are a lot more limited. So I'm gonna search for like 500C Bafang display CANbus. So can we get one? It does seem like you might like some of the displays that are coming out with CANbus variants. So here's a 500C display. This is one of my favorite ones for the Bafang motor systems. It's just very compact, and it's got the watt meter. It shows you everything you need to see. It also shows like the brake. It's got like a brake light indicator to see when the brakes are going. It's got a little error indicator where you can see the error code. And it seems like they are available with is this CANbus? Let's see here. That's not CANbus. Yeah, see, so this might be kind of like the problem here is finding a CANbus display for Bafang systems. So here's a DPC-18. So this is a popular Bafang display as well. It's a little bit bigger. I've got one of these, but it seems like on AliExpress. Oh, weird. So they've got CANbus displays. Yeah, so here's the CANbus connector right there. Interesting. So it does seem like some of these Bafang displays are coming out with the CANbus variants. And what's interesting here is it says this one, it's the C18, so it's got pedal assist 0 to 9. But then on this one, it's got pedal assist 0 to 5 with eco. So that's kind of weird how they're selling the displays with kind of like different settings. That's weird. All right. But yeah, so like if we're looking for Bafang CANbus display, there's just a lot less options right now, and it seems like that DPC-18 is one. Is it looks like that's kind of like one of the more available ones that's available on CANbus. But right now, I don't know. I mean, in terms of options, it seems a little bit limited if you're looking for a CANbus display. Most of them seem like they're UART, right? So if I look for a Bafang UART display, I imagine there's probably going to be a lot more options. Like here you've got the 600C. This is a newer display. I've got one of these. This is probably my favorite one. The 600C, it's kind of like a newer version of the 500C. But this is UART, right? So I don't know if it's available in CANbus. Oh, here it is. Look at that. So I guess, so here's a 600C, and it does have the CANbus version here. It's kind of interesting. So it tells you all the motors that it's compatible with. All right, so it seems like one of the things I was going to say is that it's probably harder to find a display if you have a CANbus version of the motor, but I don't know. I mean, I found the 600C right here with CANbus, so it seems like they're starting to become more popular. I mean, like a year ago, if you were looking for different CANbus displays for Bafang stuff, like it's just like there weren't a whole lot of options. So let's keep going here. Let's listen to Johnny some more.
What I understand, and again, I don't have this motor in yet. I've just been told this. I've been trying to fish for information, but it's been kind of slow incoming. The display and the controller are going to be different. I think it's still going to be able to use the same brake cutoffs and still going to use the same chain rings. I hope. We'll see what all the other connectors are, like speed sensor and all that. But
So right here in this picture, you can see he's got an example of like the old UART, that green circular one. So that's the old UART. And then, so the other green ones, that's kind of a funny shape, that's the CANbus connector.
but they're going to be using their new displays. I don't know if third-party displays are going to be available for it. And I know a lot of you guys are grumbling and kind of bummed about this, and we'll find out whether or not you have the right for that. It is going to make programming it hard. They said that programming it is still going to be capable of it. You're still going to be able to fine-tune it like you are, but you're going to need to use that best programming tool, and that tool is like $115.
All right. So apparently, when you move to these Bafang CANbus systems, like you have to use a whole different programming cable to program the controller. So to me, that's a pretty big disadvantage. So it's like $100-something tool. It's a proprietary thing, right? Like it's a required tool from the manufacturer, and you're gonna have to buy this thing to be able to customize the motor. It's no longer just kind of like a USB cable that's wired into, like in the past, we've been able to buy $15 USB programming cables for these things, and it wasn't like rocket science. You didn't need it wasn't it was just a cable, $15, no big deal, right? And then there's different software that people have used and like reverse engineered and stuff that you can use to program the Bafang motors. And I never thought it was very good. Like when I bought my BBSHD and I was using all those tools with the programming cable to try and tune the BBSHD, like it was still very limited. Even with all of those tools and stuff that and the parameters and configuration stuff that Bafang gave, it was still very limited. Um, you could kind of set your power per pedal assist level, and you could kind of configure like should the throttle be going when we're in pedal assist 0, should the throttle just be disabled, should the throttle be tied to the pedal assist power, or should the throttle just give you full throttle. You could configure things like that with the Bafang programming cable, but it wasn't like super deep like configuration stuff like you might find if you set the BBSHD up with a whole like aftermarket third-party controller, like a phase runner from Grintech or like a VESC controller. I think that like you're always going to have more options and more customization available if you get a third-party controller and just hook it up to your motor. So this news, it really only pertains and only affects kind of like the built-in controllers and the stock controllers and displays and everything that ship with these Bafang systems. So I still think that it's interesting to see what they're doing with this stuff, and we'll talk about this more at the end. Like I don't think this is gonna change anything, right? Like we can always continue to put our VESC controllers or like Grintech Phase Runner or whatever, we can put different controllers on these motors if we don't like the Bafang CANbus stuff, right? And if we don't want to have to use the Bafang CANbus battery, we'll get into that. Like when you use these CANbus systems, the charger might have a special connector, and then the battery has a special charge port, and then the battery has a special BMS. To be able to have everything work with CANbus, like there's a certain amount of sophistication that is like built into all these things where it's tied together. But so for now, like it doesn't look like things are headed in a great direction. If you're interested in working with like the Bafang controllers and the Bafang displays and working within the ecosystem of Bafang equipment, like they're starting, so by them adopting CANbus, they're starting to kind of lock things down a little bit. And so this tool is kind of like a special tool that you're gonna have to buy just to be able to change like the most basic things about your motor's behavior. So that's kind of a big bummer to me. I think Johnny is being a little bit optimistic about this news. So let's keep going. Let's listen to this more.
Or something. Well, right now I have programming cables that's like $15. So that's obviously not good, but hopefully the displays are going to be better. I mean, they are better, and hopefully the Bafang Go Plus app is going to.
So it looks like Bafang came out. It looks like Bafang came out with some new like app or something. Bafang Go Plus. So it seems like they're gonna be. Yeah, it seems like you even have to log into this thing, which I'm not super thrilled about. You know, like you're gonna have to. So to use this Bafang app, it says there's like a. It looks like you gotta log in with your email and your password to this thing, this app. Another thing that I just realized as I'm editing this video and kind of poking around a little bit more is when you go look at this programming tool that Bafang is starting to use now for all this CANbus stuff, it seems like it's locked down, right? And it seems like you have to log into the programming tool as well. Because like right here it says, if you're a brand, company, and customer of Bafang and interested to use BEST, please download the software and contact us to get the permission to BEST. So this programming tool, it seems like not only do you have to pay for it, $100-something just to get the BEST tool, but then also to be able to use the BEST tool, you have to contact Bafang to get permission to use the programming tool. So that, I mean, it says the same thing. Like, if you're a brand, company, and customer, contact us to get permission. If you're a dealer and interested to use BEST, contact your brand owner to get permission. If you're an assembler and interested to use BEST, contact your brand owner. So it's kind of like this whole hierarchy of control, right? Where they're giving the brand company the ability to use this tool, but then if you're like a dealer and you want to use the tool, you have to contact your brand owner to get permission. And then if you're like, who knows what like I don't, it doesn't seem like there's no like option here where it's like if you're a do-it-yourself e-bike builder and you want to use the BEST tool, contact us. So who knows? I've never used this BEST tool. I don't know what's going on with it or how it works. Seems like it's only available on Windows, which also sucks because Microsoft Windows sucks. But yeah, so it seems like the BEST programming tool is kind of like locked down and you need permission to even use it. So that could potentially be another thing, is like now that we're using CANbus, if you want to use this app, you've got to create an account with Bafang, and then you've got to log in, right? And then so your ability to use this app is dependent on, you being able to log into Bafang. Like I don't know what happens like if you don't have internet or whatever, right? When you're out riding, like how all this stuff works. So right now, to me, let's see here. I'll have to look into this app a little bit further. It seems like it mostly just kind of like shows a readout of like stats and stuff, and then it looks like you can maybe do some configuration through the app. I don't know how I feel about it, because I already have to use my phone for different things already when I'm riding my bike. So like if there's this whole new like Bafang app that I'm going to need to have on my phone. I don't know if I want that, like even if it's got a speedometer and whatever. I don't know. I mean, if your e-bike, most Bafang e-bikes have a pretty nice display already, so I don't know that I want like my phone on the bars with an app, a Bafang app as well. I don't know. It's like I want to either use an e-bike display that tells me everything I need to know, or else I don't want the e-bike display. I don't want any display, and then I'll have my phone mount and I'll use an app on my phone as a display. But I don't want to do both. Like I don't want an e-bike display and my phone on the bars. Like I just want one display. So I don't know. Like and this seems like a very new thing. 5,000 downloads, and it looks like it's getting terrible reviews. 1.3 stars. So I don't look at this as like a positive thing anytime soon. Maybe Bafang will develop it into something useful in the future, but right now, like, I don't have any interest in using this, so let's keep going forward.
Really be a good thing. But we're gonna see how the dust settles on all this. This may not be a bad thing in the future. It may be bad. We all saw how they handled the M625 rollout. That motor was just terrible. And
So what Johnny's talking about here, the M625. So a few years ago, Bafang, they were trying to do an update of the BBSHD and the BBS02, and they came out with this M625, which it kind of looked a little bit different on the outside, and they changed a few things about it, but for the most part, it was just a BBSHD with like some minor incremental upgrades. And so I think the main thing that they changed about this M625 was that it didn't use that same mounting plate that the BBSHD and the BBS02 use. It seems like they got rid of that mounting plate where it goes around the BBSHD spindle like underneath the lock nut, and then it's got the two bolts that kind of fasten into the motor. So it seems like they got rid of that thing, that mount, and they're trying to use a different mounting system on this M6. What is this? M625. And so it was like what they did was like there's this hoop, and I don't know if you can even see it. Let's see here. So this is a video from the High Voltage DIY Electric Bikes channel. This is from a couple years ago, 2021. But basically, like you can see right here, under my mouse, right here, there's kind of like this ring by his index finger, or his pointer finger in the video. Right, there's this little ring, and that's for a hose clamp to go up to the down tube on your bike. So it's like you hose clamp the motor up against your down tube instead of having like that lock ring with the couple bolts and like that mounting plate that kind of like bites into the bottom bracket shell. So apparently Bafang, they were trying to like fix the mounting system of the motor, and they just said fuck it, like we're just gonna hose clamp it and we'll put this ring like hook thing on here, and they'll just hose clamp it to the frame, and then we don't need that mounting plate, so we'll just use the lock nut and then a hose clamp instead of the lock nut and like a mounting plate. So I guess I don't mind this. There's a lot of people that didn't like this. They don't like how a hose clamp looks, hose clamping this thing up to your bike frame. So personally, I think it's good that Bafang was like trying something else, because that previous mounting system just like wasn't very good. Like the lock nut like always seemed to come loose eventually, no matter how hard you tighten it on there. Like that lock nut that holds these things on the bottom bracket, it would either be able to shift around and spin, or else like the lock nut would just start coming loose. Right? So a lot of people use stabilizer bars, or they like industrial zip ties or whatever. Like a lot of people secured their motor to their frame kind of like using some additional thing, right? So I kind of like that Bafang was trying something different here. A lot of people didn't like it because of the hose clamps. Let's see. So does he ever actually show? I think there's a different. Let's go look at a different video. So this is from Blue Monkey Bicycles, and he actually. So this is like 2 years ago as well. He unboxed this M625 motor, and then I think he bought it to Electrify Bike Company to mount it onto the bike. And then so here's this new mounting system, right? Is they use the hose clamp through this thing on the motor to hold it up. But so my question about this is like on my bikes, I always install it so that the motor's all the way up, pressed up against the down tube like this. But it seems like the motor, like the kickback from the motor or something, like it kind of like makes the motor like hammer up towards the down tube. And so on both of my bikes with the BBSHD, if that thing is just mounted straight up, touching against the down tube, like it's kind of like hammering, right? It keeps hammering upwards towards the down tube, and it can dent your down tube, right? On my steel bike, there was a big dent from it, and then on my aluminum bikes, the BBSHD, like it actually like almost like punched a hole through the frame with one of those little things that sticks up where the bolts go. So I don't know. Like I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this if this change was successful or not. I can kind of see why they did it, but it is a little bit janky. And then having a sharp hose clamp sticking out of your bike right there like this, like I feel like that could be a pretty easy place to like, hurt yourself on that, like right by your feet and your shins while you're pedaling. So I don't know. I like how Bafang was getting rid of that mounting plate and doing something else because I don't think that thing was sufficient. But is this the answer? I don't know. It seems like maybe Bafang was trying to save some money. I think they should have done something with like a stabilizer bar or like a proper torque arm. But it seems like they're always just trying to do something like to save money, right? So this is kind of like a solution that perhaps saved some money because you can mount it with just a torque arm instead of that mounting plate. But it's kind of unsightly. So then, as you can see here, that other, like there's just a lock ring on here, and there's that other mounting plate that used to go on there is no longer on there, right? So that was kind of one of the main changes related to the mounting of the motor is this hose clamp thing. So then what else is different about the M625? I think people didn't like it because of the CANbus, right? And the limited programmability. Like one of the things that people always liked about the BBSHD and the BBS02 was that, the UART display and the UART communication had that $15 programming cable, and it had its kind of like open source software available where you could program your motor, and it was just like an open kind of non-proprietary thing, right? Where people had reverse engineered it and it was kind of like sorted out to some extent with some customization, right? Whereas this new one, you need that programming tool, which is kind of a bummer. And then what else was there's one other thing that was different. I think the pedal assist sensing was a little bit better on the M625. Like they were trying to fix it and refine it a little bit better. And I think first they had cadence sensing and they kind of improved it. And then I think eventually they did try putting a torque sensor in the M625. But then at some point, I think they just like completely canceled the torque sensor M625 altogether. I remember seeing something on the high voltage channel about that. I'm not sure whatever happened. Kind of like Bafang trying to make improvements and update the BBSHD, and they went to the M265, and it's just kind of been like this. Well, like, are they actually upgrading it, or did they like backtrack on this, or what's going on?
And
So that's what Johnny's talking about here, the M625 rollout.
they discontinued it within a year. So hopefully this does not spell the end for Bafang. I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see. On paper, it does look like a good move because if it still allows you to make programming differences and it ups the quality, which I think it does, this it may not be as drastic as I know a lot of you guys are going to say that it is, but we'll see. We'll see how the dust settles.
I think Johnny's being a little bit, what's the word here? I think Johnny's being very optimistic about this change, is what I would say. It seems like moving forward, Bafang is probably just going to be making CANbus motors and CANbus controllers and CANbus displays, and they're probably going to slowly kind of discontinue the UART version of the displays and the UART versions of the controllers. So, but I can't imagine that they would just like completely discontinue the older UART versions of things, because there's so many bikes and like so many companies that are using the UART versions for existing products. So I don't think they can just overnight just discontinue it, because there's so many e-bikes and so many companies and products that depend on those UART things. But perhaps moving forward, like the new systems and the new displays and the new things, like their new app, right? Like a lot of that stuff is probably going to be tied into CANbus, which could be kind of a bummer if you're into more like DIY and like modding and customizations and stuff. I think CANbus is probably fine if you're okay with just buying everything as like a package, like you're buying the motor, then it comes with a battery and it comes with a display, and you just plug it all together and it just works. So CANbus is great for that. But if you're into more like modding and DIY, like, well, I want to buy this controller and like I want to buy a specific display for it, and I want my controller to be able to be programmed in this way and change this behavior of my motor, stuff like that, CANbus is probably more locked down, right? There might be speed limitations, like the pedal assist behavior might kind of be set in stone, who knows. But it's like when you're working with CANbus, like there's probably some aspects of it that are just kind of like set in stone, and you just have to accept them for what they are, right? Like you just have to work with it. Whereas when you're using third-party controllers, you're going to have a lot more options for customizing everything, right?
think around the early, probably around January 2025. I think some of them you might even be able to get now, but around 2025 is when they're going to be making that switch. So stay tuned for that. And honestly, this is the reason why I believe this is my opinion. So if you guys don't know or not, Bafang Direct USA has gone out of business. They've closed their website, and somebody emailed me this morning letting me know that, and I was like, wow.
So this is probably the most interesting part of this video, was when Johnny mentioned that the Bafang USA Direct had completely closed their website down. And so they're just completely gone. Like I went and looked at this the other day. Bafang USA Direct. Right? Like I have lots of like I've gone there in the past. It's all up in my history in my web browser. Like you could buy BBSHD parts, rotor and stator. Like you could buy all of these like bottom bracket spacers, everything. But now if you go to their website, It's just completely gone. 404 page not found. Right, so they have completely shut down their website, BafangUSADirect.com, and it's just like no longer there. They've completely shut it down. They're done. Bafang USA Direct is done. Right, and now when I go there, it just redirects me to Kagi, whatever this is, Kagi.com. So that's pretty crazy to me because Bafang USA Direct, they've been going for a while. So way back machine. So they, like, I wonder when did this happen? So it seems like back on September 25th, 2024. What does it look like here? So let's see if the Wayback Machine can load this. Oh yeah, here it is. I feel like I was just on this website not too long ago. So I mean, even just like a couple months ago, this is what the website looked like, right? Like they sold the Fang kits, they sold the hub motors, and they sold the mid drives, right? So they weren't just selling mid drives; they're selling all like hub motors and mid drives. And so I thought it was a pretty good resource. Like they had good guides for that could kind of help you see if you could fit the BBSHD on your bike. They had like a nice template that you could print out to see how the BBSHD would fit on your bike and like where the chain line would end up and stuff like that. So I'm surprised that a company like Bafang USA Direct would just all of a sudden up and close down, close up shop, and they're just done. There had to have been some pretty significant disruption, is what I'm thinking. I think they must have got cut off or something, right? Because if you have a business and you've developed an online business and a website, you've got everything set up, and all that you need to do is just like take orders and ship things out. For them to just all of a sudden close up shop, to me it seems like they must have got cut off. Like Bafang doesn't want to like sell them motors anymore, or else it seems like there's maybe like one of two possibilities, right? Is like they either just like completely got cut off and Bafang doesn't even want them to be a dealer anymore, and they're just like, you're out of here, we're cutting you off, right? Or else Bafang is making some kind of a change to their e-bike systems, their kits, where for whatever reason it was just like so disruptive and such a big change that this Bafang USA Direct place, they're just like, we're done with this. Like we don't want CANbus. We're not gonna. I have a feeling that they must have got cut off somehow. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Why would Bafang USA Direct just all of a sudden completely shut down their website and their business? I mean, it like what would have caused that? That's kind of crazy to me that they would just like up and shut it down out of nowhere like that. I'm guessing like Bafang, they're gonna limit who their dealers are in some way. Like they're just cutting places off. In the past, there's kind of like a lot of like competition for Bafang motors. Like it was just kind of like a race to the bottom in terms of prices, and you could go on AliExpress and there would be random sellers, selling. You could find good deals on Bafang motors and stuff. Like last year when I bought my BBSHD, and I bought it motor only. So it was just the motor and it has a controller in it, but it wasn't the kit. It didn't have any of the other stuff, just the motor. And I got it for like $360. So that was pretty crazy. To get a BBSHD motor for $360, even without like the cranks and the chainring and all that other stuff. I mean, that's a pretty crazy deal. So it seems like Bafang is maybe kind of like cutting down on they might be kind of imposing some restrictions or limitations or being more selective about who their dealers are going to be. And I would be interested to know, like, if Bafang USA Direct shut down, like, what's going to happen to Johnny Nerdout? Is he still going to be, is he still going to be a dealer? I mean, I guess if you want to be a Bafang dealer anymore, you're going to have to get behind this CANbus stuff, right? Because that's probably, it sounds like that's going to be the only option. So I would be, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here with this. If Bafang USA Direct shut down, I wonder what'll happen with Johnny Nerdo. I think that there's always going to, like, you can always take the BBSHD or the O2 or whatever and put it on a different controller and your own battery if you want to, right? But like if you're trying to just sell Bafang systems and Bafang is making these changes to CANbus and now you've got to get a battery that's CANbus and a display that's CANbus. And possibly you might have to get approved by Bafang, to be a dealer in the future. Like they might be more restrictive about that. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with all of this stuff. So let's keep going here. Very interesting piece of news that Bafang USA Direct is completely shut down. That's crazy.
I heard that they were thinking about getting out of it. They emailed me back over the summer with a weird email, but I guess they caught wind of this news coming and they bowed out. But a lot of people always thought like they referred to Bafang USA Direct, whatever. They always thought they were Bafang, and no, they were not Bafang. They were just a guy that had a misleading business name. So anyway, sorry if you guys bought from them. You were not going to be able to get support from them, but that sucks. But hopefully that'll add. Hopefully the silver lining is that it'll make things less confusing now. People won't think that they're buying from Bafang. But yeah, I mean, it's still sad when somebody goes out of business. So I'm not thankful for that, but it is news. Another thing is UL listed batteries are right around the corner. I have some on order right now, so they will be arriving. They're not going to be as expensive as I originally thought. I thought it'd be like a $300 or $400 price increase. I don't think it's going to be that much. I don't know the final price, but UL listed batteries are coming down, and that's really good news.
So, so it is probably good news that Bafang is coming out with some UL listed batteries. Hopefully, since Bafang is such a big company, that through economies of scale, they can offer some UL listed batteries that work with their systems that aren't outrageously priced, so that these e-bike systems and these kits are still kind of like an attractive option. But if the batteries become too expensive, I can see that kind of becoming a deterrent. Like that was one of the main drawbacks with the M625 when they rolled that out, is nobody wanted the Smile battery that was like proprietary, and it was like this big funny looking battery. Where was it here? We've got it in this video here. So where's the battery? Here we go. So this is that big ugly battery that Bafang was trying to get everybody to use when they rolled this motor out, were these Smile batteries, but then nobody wanted it, and I think that was a big part of why this M625 thing failed. It was like you had to use the Smile battery, and that was it. Like you just couldn't plug a different battery in, like it just right. So that is a disadvantage of these new CANbus systems, is it's going to require some kind of like a proprietary battery that with a BMS, like a smart BMS, that can communicate with the rest of the system. And then so I think at some point there is a picture of inside of the battery, and it looks confusing. Like it looks complicated and confusing, and like there is a lot going on in there. The BMS on that thing, Looks crazy. So where did I see that? So high voltage DIY electric vehicles channel. So he had the M625 and he kind of took it apart. And aside from the controller that was based on UART, or based on CANbus rather, it seems like the rest of the motors was still the same. So when they switched it to CANbus, it seems like the built-in factory kind of like stock controller saw some changes to CANbus. But then the motor itself doesn't seem like it changed a whole lot. So in theory, like even if you have the M625 or one of these newer ones, if you didn't want to use CANbus, you should be able to just get rid of the built-in controller and then put some other controller on it, right? So then that would allow you to get past CANbus, use your own controller, use your own battery, and kind of get around this whole situation. This whole CANbus change primarily kind of like affects, like if you want to run these motors with the stock controller, the factory controller, and kind of use it within that Bafang ecosystem with all the displays that they offer and stuff. So fortunately, we can always put a different controller on these things because the motors is just like 3-phase wires, some Hall sensors, and whatever, right? So we can always put a different controller on there.
Now, full disclosure, in my opinion, I think they're the same batteries as the ones that I'm currently buying, but now they went through the testing process and they just have that stamp, that UL listed stamp on it. So if you're worried, like, oh, I should wait to get it, there's really no difference. But if you live in New York, for example, you might need to get that UL listed battery. But if you're anywhere else, don't worry about it. I mean, you still get the same warranty and all that stuff. But it's exciting that UL listed batteries are now, they're coming down the pipe. So that's really good. A lot of people were like, oh, the DIY, they're going to catch our house on fire and stuff. So this is a really good step in that direction. Other news.
Okay, so I think that's kind of it for this. The Bafang news is mostly like they're switching over to CANbus potentially in the near future. Like it seems like they might discontinue the UART stuff, or at the very least, like it's not, the UART might kind of be like a legacy, like sunset kind of deal where it's still there as an old option just to support existing systems, but moving forward they might be just supporting CANbus. So that, I thought that was like an interesting piece of news. It still remains to be seen. I mean, Bafang, it seems like we've been going years where it's like people are saying that something is going to happen with this stuff, and like it never seems to quite happen. It seems like Bafang is toying around with different ideas here and there. They changed the mounting system a little bit so that it uses that ugly hose clamp, and then they got rid of that mounting plate. I never liked that mounting plate. I think if Bafang figures out a better way to mount this motor on a bike, that's probably a good thing, right? I mean, I wouldn't mind having one of those little like hose clamp circle things on my BBSHD, to be honest. And I do think that this M625, I think it looks cooler, like the housing that goes on the controller here. I think it looks a little bit cooler. It looks like it's got one extra bolt in there and one extra machine screw holding everything together. It's 4 screws instead of 3. But it looks a little bit cooler. I don't know. I don't mind how it looks. But yeah, so let me know, guys. What do you think? Where do you think this is all going to go with these Bafang motors? Are they just going to lock it all down with CANbus? Or are they still, like, is this best BESST, is this programming tool gonna be something that, like, do you think that you could program your motor with this programming tool? Do you guys want to have to buy a $115 tool to program your BBSHD? I don't know. So it seems like moving forward it may become even more and more important to be able to hook up third-party aftermarket controllers to these Bafang mid-drive motors so that we can get them working as we like and customize them to our liking, right? It seems like in the future Bafang might kind of lock things down with CANbus. You're gonna be limited to the programming equipment that they will sell you, and you'll be limited to the displays that are available with the CANbus connector, and you'll be potentially limited to batteries that are, specific to that charge port. So that was another thing that I found here was the charge port on those Smile batteries is just different. So let's go see. It was in this video. So what is the, here it is. So here's the charge port on these Smile batteries, and it's got this like special connector on it. So this is the kind of thing that we're gonna see happening here. Is kind of proprietary charging connectors, right? Where it's not just like a DC positive, negative leads that go to a battery, right? So it's gonna have that, right? But it's also got all these different things in there for communication, so the battery can communicate over CANbus. And the BMS is probably communicating with the display and with the controller and all that kind of stuff. So it might mean that you have a better battery gauge and a more accurate battery gauge on your e-bike, which could be good. But then it also means that it's no longer just like a XT60 connector that plugs your battery into your bike, right? So now you need some fancy connector with kind of like fancy charging features and smart BMS and all this kind of stuff. So I think that's it for this video, guys. I just wanted to kind of look at this Bafang news that has been coming out here lately. I want to get your thoughts about how do you think this is gonna roll out? What do you think? How do you think this is gonna unfold? What do you think Bafang's gonna do here? Do you think this is a good change? What kind of benefits do you think we'll see? What kind of new features do you think we'll see on these CANbus systems? It does allow for more sophisticated, complex systems with probably like cool new features that weren't available on the UART communication protocol in the past, but it also kind of locks it down in a proprietary way where we need proprietary batteries. Like the battery has to jive with your motor, and then now you're gonna need a CANbus display, to hook to the motor. You can't just go back and buy a 500C with the UART connector. It's gotta be, there's all this new equipment and new hardware coming out that's gonna work specifically with CANbus, and moving forward, probably have to use those, right? So let me know what you think. Thanks for the video and the news update, Johnny Nerdout, as well as thanks to Blue Monkey Bicycles for this M625 review from 2 years ago. And also thanks to High Voltage DIY Electric Bikes and Vehicles channel for his video 2 years ago, where he looked inside of this new iteration of the motor. So once again, we've got this Discord going, so make sure you guys join the Discord. Show me a picture of your e-bike in the Discord. If you want to buy me a coffee, support the channel, support my endeavors, I'll have a link to that in the description as well. Buy me a coffee link. Thanks to all my supporters. Things are picking up here, guys. Things are picking up. When my GoPro batteries overheat and get bloated and stop working, I've got my supporters supporting me. So it's not such a hole in my pocket moving forward, and I appreciate that. So thanks to all my supporters. Make sure you like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. And I think everything's going to be just fine, because here on the e-bike builder channel, we know how to hook aftermarket third-party controllers to our BBSHD and our Bafang motors. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in using your e-bike controller with VESC or with a Phase Runner or some other controller, make sure you like and subscribe, because I do that stuff on my channel all the time. And stay tuned for more e-bike stuff in the future. Like and subscribe. See you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Peace out.